Good evening, viewers, and welcome back to the Tuesday show, East London's news review programme, coming to you live from the heart of the People's Republic of Tower Hamlets. You're all very welcome, and tonight we're going to be devoting ourselves to talking about a really big problem that we've been experiencing over the last couple of weeks since the re-election for the third time of Mayor Lutfur Rahman. And that is the reaction of the press to the exercise of this democratic process. It's not anything new, and we know there's been a lot of Islamophobia in the press for years anyway, but the vitriol is specially reserved, we think, for Lutfur Rahman. What has he done to deserve this? Joining me to discuss the matter and to take your calls, I have Tofial Uddin, who you may remember as the broadcaster Mr. T. He's come out of retirement to join us today and have a chat about this. So you're very welcome, Tofial. And viewers, if you'd like, we really would like you today to ring in, talk about your experiences, what you've seen in the press about the Tower Hamlets election, what winds you up, what you've done about it, what you think we should do about it, or just what you think the way forward might be. So let's do ring us. Oh, the number is 020 8 1234507. So that's, everyone can remember that. Give us a call, come through to the studio and put your question or your point of view. So, Tofial, how do you feel about Mayor Lutfur Rahman? Do you think he's ever going to get a free press hearing, and does it matter?
I think it does matter, because we can never underestimate the power of the media and the press. I remember many years ago at my workplace, I used to work in a local police station, and I stood up in front of my colleagues and I said, Labour is going to win the next election. And everyone started laughing. And the reason for me saying that was this was the time when the Sun newspaper had, or Rupert Murdoch's publications, had switched their allegiance from Conservative to Labour. And to me, that was an indication that something was going to happen with Labour. And that was my prediction, which turned out to be true. And Tony Blair did become the Labour leader. But at the time, people couldn't see that far forward. Though we can never underestimate the power of the media. And that is my concern locally, how much impact that is having on people.
Yes, and not just on Mayor Rahman, of course. It's on the whole view that people form of Tower Hamlets and of the people who live here. So why does it actually matter, though? Because, I mean, surely the voters just go to the polls, do what they want to do, and we all move on, don't we?
I wish that we could move on, but the thing is, prior to the election, there were a lot of newspaper articles. There was even somebody at the House of Lords making an announcement.
So what did they have to say in the House of Lords?
I don't have the details handy, but it was something along the lines. I think it was sort of casting doubt on whether Lutfur Rahman should be allowed to stand for election based on this tribunal decision that was made a few years ago. Yeah. And there was a 5-year ban. There's no denying that. But if that was his sentence, so to speak, then that has expired, and he should have just been allowed to get on with it rather than bring up these doubts in people's minds.
I had an interesting time at the election count because I was in the press gallery and talking to some of the other correspondents for sort of official mainstream media. Some of them didn't even know what had happened back in 2010, back in 2014, 2015. They are too young to even to remember what I think is not that long ago.
For us.
All they know is Lutfur Rahman is corrupt. And of course, that's not true, is it? We should perhaps explain that the election hearing was instigated by 4 individual voters in Tower Hamlets. I've never been able to work out how they got together, because there was the secretary of the UKIP branch, a Labour candidate, a sort of hanger-on of the Labour Party, and another bloke. And I don't know how they all got together and found out they all had this burning desire to question the election.
I wondered what actually made them gel.
Yeah.
As a unit, it's quite it's a question that I'd like to get to the bottom of.
If anybody knows how it is that those four people met and decided to take action, and potentially it could have been quite costly action. So they did take risks. If anyone knows rather how they came to meet up and realised they had this common cause, ring in or drop us a comment on our Facebook page, the podcast Facebook page. But get together they did, and they began a legal process. But people forget when they hear that the election was corrupt, the meanings of the words corrupt. And too often people think corrupt means, oh, you have your hand in your pocket, where it shouldn't be. And corrupt means literally broken. And the findings of that election process, that legal process, was that it was the election that was corrupt, not Lutfur Rahman. And he was actually found guilty of very few things. I think there were about 12 charges in the end that were upheld. But they were things like a bunch of imams, was it 100 or 101, got together and put out a letter and urging people to back Lutfur Rahman. And that was something that broke the election. Now, it wouldn't have done if they had been Christians, because the judge went on to explain how Anglicans, members of the Church of England, if they hear a sermon, they use their education, their understanding of the sermon, to judge whether to follow their priest. But Muslims quite often don't speak English, the judge pointed out, and don't understand. And they also take it very seriously, especially when they're rural Muslims.
Right.
That they have no critical distance from what the Imam says. So that was the interference in the election. I don't think Lutfur was very guilty of that. I don't think he went to the Imams and said, can you frighten everyone to vote for me? I think people knew what they were doing.
Most of what I've seen of Lutfur Rahman in terms of religious sort of activities have been multi-faith.
Yes.
I've seen photos and videos of him engaging with people in the synagogues and things like that. So, yeah, I don't know how this religious element keeps being brought in. And the religious issue has been used as a scaremongering tactic for a while now. And I don't know if you recall the Trojan horse affair.
Yep.
Yeah. Now, luckily, we've got the Washington Post had a couple of journalists who I think are the Woodward and Bernstein of our time. And they did some wonderful research into this Trojan horse affair. And they blew the lid on the whole thing. There was a long podcast covering this whole farce. The media made such an issue of it. There was so much scaremongering. And as a result, it's affected the lives of people who were there teaching.
Yeah.
Pupils who came out of those schools as well. Their future's been affected when they go into university and things. Oh, you were at that school, the Trojan horse school, and things like that. So
maybe we should just explain. Not all our viewers may be familiar with the history of Birmingham. What actually was the Trojan horse?
The Trojan horse affair started off, I believe, with an anonymous letter. I'm not even sure if the letter was dated. So this letter got into the hands of the authorities, and they were making some allegations that there was some Islamization maybe of the school, if that's the right word to use. And there was all this fear mongering around this, and some of the things were taken totally out of context. I think there was an occasion where the police visited this school and they were playing a video, which was, I think it was to do with terrorism or something, but this was the police playing the video in the school. But when their report or whatever was prepared, I think they mentioned that the school was playing these videos, terrorism videos, making it sound as though they were being shown to the pupils, or that was the implication, even though
Yeah.
it may not have directly said it. So we've got the lots of sort of fine details like that.
Well, you remind me. So we're talking away between ourselves here. If you ring in, you can get a word in edgeways. It reminds me of the, of course, the one side is the actual sort of legal process, but the other side that Mayor Rahman had to go through was this, what's the word, examination by the government that sent in commissioners and forensic accountants. And Mr. Pickles, what was it? I don't know the numbers. He sent in something like 4 accountants, didn't he? Thinking that he'd send them in for a week and they'd find all the wrongdoing that Lutfur Rahman was engaged in. And they had to get some friends in the next week and some more the next week. I don't know how many there were in the end, 10 or 12. I don't know what the cost was, but it involves the word million. They were there 6 months. The council believes that the accountants went through 10 million pieces of paper and couldn't find any wrongdoing worth taking to court. And 3 times he was asked to look again and he still couldn't find any. There's got to come a point where you stop believing that you haven't found it because you haven't looked hard enough. And if you look again, you will. And you have to come to terms with the fact you can't find it because it's not there.
It's not there in the first place. Yeah.
So that was all the background to that. But Mr. Pickles, in the course of all this, addressed the House of Commons, and he read out the final report from Pricewaterhouse. Now, I read the report, and in the report it said, in one place, that a large number of grants went to community organisations based in the northwest part of the borough of Tower Hamlets. That's around Spitalfields and Whitechapel, and it's probably the traditional Bangladeshi area, really. And the report went on to say, now this is not surprising because the south of Tower Hamlets, its Docklands, was bombed so much in the Second World War that there aren't those sort of old surviving buildings that there are in the northwest that community organisations become community hubs and that organisations are run from. So Pickles read this out in the Commons, but he didn't give the qualification. He just said a lot of the grants are going to organisations based in Whitechapel. Inference being, one Muslim's helping out the others. Why didn't he read that qualification? This is what we're trying to get to grips with here. Do ring in, viewers, and let us know what you think about this as well. So, sorry, we went off at a tangent there.
No, that it's all very interesting. It's all related as well. If you sort of, sometimes you might look at, what's the Trojan horse affair got to do with this? But the media are complicit in a lot of these things. I mean, in the build-up to the election, we've had this word "disgraced" Mayor Lutfur Rahman. I mean, disgraced is it's a subjective term. It's not. It's someone's opinion. Whereas they failed to mention the fact that he's stood election 3 times and he's been undefeated. When we refer to boxers that have won their title 3 times, like Muhammad Ali, I don't know whether he won 3 or 4 times, but that's seen as a positive thing. But with Mayor Lutfur Rahman, the fact that he's 3 times undefeated elected mayor seems to skip the mind of the media, and they would start off many of their news articles and things with the word "disgraced mayor." Even though later on in the article they may bring out some of the truth of what actually happened. But the first paragraph does the damage. A lot of people may not read beyond that. They form their opinion on the early part of the paragraph.
Yeah.
Now, if I could bring to your notice something or someone who I consider has been disgraced by this country. If we look to Margaret Thatcher, now, when she died, there was this song from Wizard of Oz, "Ding Dong, the Witch is Dead," and that was riding high in the charts. A death of a prime minister had that effect on the music charts. Recently, we've had this statue of Margaret Thatcher where people have been throwing eggs. Now, that to me is someone who has been disgraced, who who was truly disliked by the public. But
And
Mayor
that's
Lutfur Rahman did not have that effect on people. This is a chap who has stood election. He's got 40,000 votes. Is that the sign of someone who is disgraced?
I know, yes, disgrace has come up more than once. The first time I heard it was again in the press gallery at the Count, where the newly elected Mayor Rahman came up to the press gallery, and somebody, I don't actually know which television channel she was from, but she was from one of them, I believe. And she leapt forward, clamped a microphone onto him, and began to interview him. And her first words were something along the lines of, "Well, disgraced mayor, how do you feel about being back?" And I really wanted to leap forward and remonstrate with her, but unusually for me, I did actually hold back, because I thought the mayor could probably manage to stand up for himself, which I believe he did. But I still haven't got over that. How could she say? I'm sure she was from a news channel, and the news she chose to pick up on was something that was 2015, 7 years old. The man had just won this re-election. Shouldn't have been, "Hello, popular mayor." No, it was, "Hello, disgraced mayor." And I thought, I wonder what byline she puts up on her news report. Perhaps she puts up whatever her name was. I'm going to say Kate Adams. I'm sorry to all the Kate Adamses out there. I know it wasn't that name, but does she put reporter Kate Adams, or does she put schoolgirl Kate Adams? Because I'm sure she was a schoolgirl once, and it's no longer relevant, so she doesn't use it. So why is she using the word disgraced?
There are quite often times when I look at the news, or when I have in the past, and I just sort of giggle to myself with some of the sound bites and things. Do you recall the build-up to the Iraq War, where every news report ended with weapons of mass destruction? That line was, that was shoehorned in, or it was just wedged in there into the sentence, in a sentence where it doesn't necessarily belong. And the thing just looked so fake. And I'm sure most of the general populace had the notion that, that this wasn't a naturally flowing script here. They were told to mention that at every opportunity. And I get that feeling when I look at some of the variety of newspapers that use the word disgraced Mayor Lutfur. They're all using the same tagline. And it doesn't really help anyone. It's not informing or educating.
And it rubs off on the rest of us.
It does.
We're from the borough that has the disgraced mayor in it.
It's what we deserve. I think that's what they probably think.
Viewers, you're being shy as usual. 0208 1234507. Do ring in. How do you feel about the word disgraced? Is it justified, or is it something that we should protest about? And if we do protest, how do we protest? What do you think we can actually do to file? To register our disapproval?
Register our disapproval. I think publications need to be held to account, whether that means through, perhaps, I don't know, some legal means, maybe, some strongly worded legal letters that remind them of their responsibilities and where they may have may be lacking. I don't know how viable an option that is, because I think the end effect that it's having is that it's hampering progress within the borough. We've got, somebody who's won an election with such a high number of votes, a large number of councillors with him, and they need to progress with the work, because there are things done by the previous administration that they have to undo and then rectify. And I feel they need all the support. They've got the support of the populace, but there's a limit to how much we can actually help, apart from our moral support that we're giving. But they also need help from the people who are working in the local authority, and even the opposition people, because the aim should be for everyone to work for our borough, regardless of what party you're from, and everyone to carry out their duties. Now, if someone thinks that because I am from another party that I should not cooperate or anything, I'm not saying that they are. I'm just giving a possible scenario where if somebody has these sort of thoughts, and it's going to hamper progress. And then if you have the media sort of informing the rest of the country that this is the state of Tower Hamlets, it's a worrying thought.
It is. I mean, I think that was a lot of the problem last time. Lutfur Rahman was first elected in October 2010, and then re-elected in May 2014. And I think it was his re-election in 2014 that really wound up the Labour Party, and to the point where they mounted an attack upon him. The then two Labour MPs in the borough made no secret of the fact they had gone to Eric Pickles and begged him to intervene. I think that really did have as a great distraction. It distracted Lutfur, it distracted councillors, it distracted officers to no particularly good end at a time when we had a lot of grappling with legislation and the economic situation and so forth.
And it's not the first time that an independent party has ruffled feathers in Tower Hamlets. George Galloway, previously, with his Respect councillors and so on, he sort of went against the establishment to some extent.
Very much, I think.
Yeah, and there I think they were not they weren't able to progress as much as they perhaps could have. And I just hope that things are different this time round, because Mayor Lutfur has taken a considerable number of councillors with him.
Yes.
So 24 is a significant number, and I just hope that they can do some good for us.
Absolutely, that is a lot of councillors. I think so far the Labour Party has said it will respect the result and allow Lutfur to. It hasn't been as combative in its response to the election result. I think they were shocked, and there's a funny old situation. I personally, watching John Biggs, the outgoing mayor, thought he was very surprised at the result. Really surprised. He looked to me. I could be wrong, but he looked to me like somebody who thought that Labour would pull it out of the bag, would win.
Okay.
But a lot of Labour Party activists, I went round the borough on polling day talking to Labour activists outside polling stations, and I was saying to them, tell me one thing about you, John Biggs. In 2000, the last election, that would have been, 2018, he had a set of policies, and during the last 4 years, the Labour Party has said that its party members have said that they oppose charging for adult social care, they oppose the closing of day nurseries, they oppose ending the community language service, and there was a range of those. I said, but John Biggs seems to have done the opposite every time. So if we're going to vote for him again, how can we trust him this time? Blank faces. Nobody could actually give me an answer. One or two of the Labour Party representatives went as far as trying to say, we can talk to him. I said, but will he listen? He didn't before. And one or two of them said, he's going to lose us the election. And some sitting councillors saying, people coming up to them saying, I'll vote for you, dear, because I know you. I'm not voting for that John. And when they were going out and knocking up the votes, voters were saying, I'm not coming out to vote for John, though. And he seems to have been such a factor. I don't usually like personalising politics, but perhaps Labour is still reeling from the shock of losing
I think
John.
he has had it easy having his first office as mayor handed to him on a plate, because when Lutfur was removed from his position, then John Biggs took up the position without any election or anything, I believe. Yeah.
No. There was an election. There was a by-election in the June. When Lutfur departed, was sent home. The deputy, I think, was that Oeid? Councillor Oeid Ahmed?
Okay.
Was the acting mayor. He had been the deputy mayor, he was the acting mayor until the election could be called, and it was held, I think, 5 or 6 weeks
Right.
after Lutfur was given
My
the early bath.
memory's getting foggy in my old age.
You're not as old as me, so let's not go there. And then there was the election, but yeah, the writing was on the wall there. So yes, you're right. I think he had an easy walk. He had a shoe-in for that in that by-election in June 2015.
I'm just wondering, does this program have callers speaking in other languages at all?
No. Only ones that I can, at the moment, we haven't got any callers speaking in any language. So what are
Because
you
you have a
doing out there?
professional interpreter here, so
Absolutely, yes. If you would like to
You don't
speak ring in and speak in Bengali, we can offer you a translator, or I can do German, French, Italian, or Latin if you're pushed. So,
আপনারা যদি বাংলায় কথা বলতে চান আপনারা অবশ্যই আপনারা ফোন করতে পারেন অনুষ্ঠানে সিলেটি ভাষায় যদি কথা কইতে চান আপনারা ফোন করোকা আমি এটার অনুবাদ হরিয়া বুঝাই মনে জেনিফার রে okay
what he said. Yeah.
Yeah, I've offered to translate things for you if anyone does call in.
Yeah, I never made it, so learning Bengali, sadly. And of course, what we were talking about earlier about the Islamophobic sort of coverage in the media and how it affects us all. After that initial shock, we're now seeing some of the old tropes come out again, aren't we? Most recently, I think we've had this discussion of family voting.
Oh, yes.
Have you read that at all?
I made a rather cheeky comment in response to one of these posts. And I said that, well, you know, they're going to have to create a lot of political parties because some of these families have a lot of members. Now, if two members of the family cannot vote for the same party or same person, then they're going to have a range of parties for them to vote for. How people from one family cannot maybe think alike or come to the same conclusion, how they cannot experience the same difficulties within the same borough and agree on the same solution, and how that can be looked upon negatively, I don't know. It's it goes.
But again, it's such, to my mind, and obviously I'm not of Bangladeshi heritage, I'm not a Muslim, but it just sort of irks me because again, it's treating Muslims like second-class citizens. That's what doesn't sit well with me. And I'll tell you for why, because as a very seasoned, 10 election seasoned, 40-year seasoned Labour activist, it's a very well-known phenomenon that you go around canvassing, and if a woman answers the door, a white woman, like somebody who's lived in Tower Hamlets for a long time, the chances are they will say, oh, you want to talk politics, I'll go and fetch my husband. You go back on polling day and you knock up, because on polling day, what the political parties do is they try and get as many voters to the polling stations as quickly as possible as they can. So if you go round and you find a woman at home, you know, an adult woman at home, you'll try and get her to leave home and go down to the polling station. And what will she say? Me and my husband always go to vote together, so I'm going to wait till he comes home from work and we'll go after we've had our tea. Of course, as a mainstream party canvasser, you don't want to hear that, because he might come home from work and have his tea and decide he's a bit tired. And you've only got to go and fetch him out again. But there's so many wives who will say, I'll wait for my husband, you can talk politics to my husband and all the rest of it. And over the last 40 years, we've been saddened by that. Oh dear, women should be involved in politics directly, that sort of thing. But we've accepted it. We've never said, there's something wrong with the white people in this country. They don't know their own minds. And I wonder if a Muslim family, maybe if it keeps going out to vote for Lutfur Rahman and they all vote for it, maybe it's just a sign that they do know their own minds.
I'm sure
Hello,
they
caller.
do.
We have a caller come through. It must be you. Would you like English or Bengali, caller?
Hello.
Hello there. Who's calling?
Hi. Yeah, can you hear me?
We can hear you. What's your name?
English, please. Yeah, my name is Mohammed Islam.
Ahmed?
Mohammed Islam.
Mohammed, you're very welcome. What would you like to say to us?
Well, I'm just like to answer the question that was there. I think the media has always been negative towards Rahman, and I feel it still is. There's still a lot of negativity on social media as well. It's very hard to cut through what is false and what is the truth. And there are a lot of mass species out there on the social media trying to spread negative around Lutfur Rahman. And as you said, a lot of voters are young. They do not know, they haven't lived through the Lutfur Rahman era, so-called. So all they read is on social media is negative information. Lutfur Rahman this, Lutfur Rahman that, or he's stolen things, or he doesn't listen to residents, or the fact that he's been convicted of a crime that he hasn't been, So all these things has been sort of like blurred, and people are given the wrong message on what Lutfur Rahman is.
How does that make you feel, Mohammed?
Well, I mean, the fact is, I've lived through Kahamdas all my life, and I've seen what Lutfur Rahman has done for the residents. There's so many good things to mention, like the freezing council taxes, the youth services, the wheels on meals, and there are a number of things. Nothing I might have been missing out on. But the good things are never mentioned. It's always the negative point.
How do you think we should deal with this, Tofial?
The only thing we can do is the conversation that we're having now. There are people on social media trying to give out the facts of what. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah, so the only thing I personally think is through dialogue, through communication, as much as we can, be it on Facebook, on your podcast, or.
Okay, Mohammed, thank you very much for your call. We do appreciate it, but your line is dipping out.
Thank you.
Stay in touch with us and get onto that keyboard and put a bit of a message out. Thank you for calling.
No problem. I'd like to say thank you very much for whatever you're doing. Really appreciate it. Much love and respect to you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Thank you. What should we do then? Should we be putting out our own social media to counter this, or do we need to go on to the hostile social media and rebut it? That's the big question.
I think we need to scrutinize the social media. We need to have sort of people with their with their sensors or whatever out, looking for what's out there, especially by the mass media. And I think that we need to have a sort of unified voice to raise against them. I think that's the only way. If we start going into this sort of battle of the tweeters or whatever, then it become. We know that there are people out there who can be paid to troll, and rather than a trolling match, I would much rather make the publications and so on accountable, because I think that's really the starting point of a lot of these ideas that people have. The newspapers and so on, they are providing these people with the ammunition with which to troll the mass media.
It can be very unrewarding, can't it? I've put a few comments on the Daily Mail after a link was circulated to an article just after the election, but they get moderated and you don't know if they appear or not. And with news articles, it's gone the day or the day after. So when Lutfur was first elected, there was an idea going around on the right-wing press that he was going to make all women wear burqas in the swimming pools.
Okay.
John Biggs got round this, never got accused of this because, he closed them. So that's some of that was due to COVID. But we know Mayor Rahman's going to reopen them, and hopefully, I've never heard him say he's going to make all women wear burqas, but this was the idea going around, and so I piled into this and said, no, he's not. And had an argument with a woman who I didn't know at the time, but apparently is called Melanie Phillips. And then after a while, I realised that there was no convincing her. She was just peddling rubbish. And so there was little point engaging, even though it meant that the counter view appeared.
Was this lady not aware of female-only swimming sessions?
No. No.
That would be too complex to arrange,
Yeah.
I believe. So.
She was just very, very scared of the burqa. So he probably wears a mask in COVID times as well. But yeah, so you think we need a sort of central monitoring unit?
I sometimes wonder about these people who had issues with the niqab as well. You know, oh, you can't see people's facial expressions and things like that. And then COVID comes along, and now you have people of regardless of gender, they are wearing the burqa,
Yes.
the paper
Yeah.
disposable burqa.
Yeah, absolutely.
The Lord works in mysterious ways.
Whoever he is, yes. Well, it's nuns as well, isn't it? You know, there's people getting hot and bothered about Islamic dress, and was it just Jack Straw, wasn't it? Well, I can't have Muslims in my surgery. I can't see them. I can only see their eyes. And you think, what would you do if a nun came in, Jack? You know, so they can be equally covered. So that was that's all gone. So, do you think the consequences for Muslims as a whole? This is something you can talk about, but I can't. I've never experienced that.
Okay.
How do you feel as a Muslim? See, I was making light earlier of the some of the anti-Muslim stuff and trying to poke fun at it. Do you think it does serious damage to continually offend Muslims, hurt Muslims, or do you just brush it off when people criticise Muslims? Oh, you lot are all the same, just like Lutfur Rahman.
There's a whole range of attacks, isn't there? There are attacks on the lighter side. I mean, I recently posted something on Facebook where some comedians are making jokes, and I think the tagline was something, only Muslims can say these things. So sometimes there is the lighter side, and you can sometimes sort of turn a blind eye. But there are some very offensive things as well, and also where people's lives are involved. And you got, on Sunday, the 15th of May, there was a newspaper article referring to a white supremacist teen shooter called for Sadiq Khan's death in a 180-page manifesto. This was somebody in the States who seems to have this awareness of Sadiq Khan. And I sometimes wonder, where this information goes.
Sadiq's just been out there, hasn't he?
Okay, but
He's just on a tour of the
but apart
States.
from that, I'm sure that there are pockets of far right people here and over there who are talking to each other and sharing ideas and things. And the thing is, a person who has written a 180-page manifesto, how they are not referred to as a terrorist. And the moment anyone brown-skinned does anything out of the ordinary, they're a terrorist. I recently heard of an incident where somebody was stopped by police, and the vehicle was considered a suspect vehicle. And I think they exploded the vehicle, thinking that it was suspect. And the chap has got compensation recently for this. But it's just the imbalance in how things are viewed. Someone, caught red-handed, armed with a gun, who's killed people, is not referred to as a terrorist.
And I think we said last week as well, there was a woman journalist, Al Jazeera journalist, who was reported quite widely on social media as having died in Palestine. And then a US journalist was reported as having been killed in Ukraine.
This lady was shot in the head, possibly by a sniper, which to me is an assassination. And for that to be, just referred to as a death, it's just adding insult to injury.
Yes. I know you're making me think of one party candidate I know who referred to as children dying in Gaza as collateral damage. So, a lot of it about. Can we turn this into a positive? We've got a new mayor. We've got a new crop of councillors of Bangladeshi origin, Muslim councillors. how can they pull themselves together and present a positive image that will help people realise that we are one, united, diverse but united East End, do you think?
Well, the issues that they're taking on, the issues are not related to Muslims or Bengalis. They are issues for the whole community. And people need to recognize that. If they, for example, a contentious issue was the closing of our roads. Now, if they're opening up roads where it's viable to improve the traffic flow and things like that, that's got nothing to do with race or color or religion. This is going to benefit the whole community. We've got some people suffering from financial problems, poverty from all angles, the fuel poverty that we're seeing and so on. Now, that has nothing to do with race or color. So if something can be done to alleviate poverty or help people who are in need, everyone's going to benefit in the community. And I think the other positive thing is that we have a strength in numbers of a block of councillors from one party who perhaps have the same sort of intention to help the community. And I believe that we as residents of the borough need to trust them and give them our support.
And maybe make sure that we feed our issues back to them. I was at a tenants meeting earlier this evening, and a fellow tenant nudged me. Said, "We've not got any Labour around here now, have we?" I said, "Oh, shall we talk to the councillors that we have got?" And I certainly, beware, either of those councillors, you know who you are. I shall certainly be talking to you before the night is out about the very important issues that came up there. But everywhere we need to feed those issues into our elected politicians so that they can take them up. I see we've had a couple of comments on our Facebook page. Nipa, thank you for your comment. You're enjoying the discussion and you think it's a very important and a valuable one, which is nice. And I've also just had a message from a woman I shall call Benji's mum, who again says that Tofial, you've got a very calming voice, and she wonders if you've ever considered training to be a therapist. She thinks
a therapist.
Yes.
I do actually work in as an interpreter in psychological sessions and things like that. So yes, I've already put my voice to use in those areas.
Fantastic. That's what we like to hear. Well, we must be drawing to a close now. So if anybody will begin drawing to a close, if anybody else would like to catch us before we go off air, do ring in or send us a comment. I'm just about finding everything, I think. So I'm sure Mayor Rahman himself is not listening. And
he's got a lot on his plate.
Yes. Well,
and I'm not referring to his dinner.
Oh dear. Look, we hope you get your plate cleared this evening and you get a good night's sleep ready for tomorrow, because of course it all starts formally tomorrow, doesn't it?
And I hope that people who missed the program do get a chance to listen to it on YouTube or something later.
Yeah.
At their convenience.
This program, if you've been watching, this program is available on our Facebook page, on the VOD Talk Facebook page and the VOD Talk YouTube channel. And what you can do as part of a community effort to fight back a bit against this denigrating of Muslims, why don't you share the program? Why don't you send a link to the program out to some of your friends, your contacts, people in the community, and we'll have a few more people watching this and thinking about the issues. Now, you've got a lot of notes there. Are there any other examples of negative press coverage that you've come across that I haven't managed to extract from you?
I just printed off a few items, and these are, and they're all sort of in the same vein. We've got a BBC News report here from the 9th of May, which was just after the election. And they sort of mentioned that Lutfur Rahman will be watched like a hawk. And then
Why didn't they watch John Biggs like a hawk? He did.
yeah, maybe some scrutiny might have helped. He might have
Yeah.
got things moving. And the comment, 25 men of the same community, shock, horror, scandal. It's sort of, it's alarming stuff, isn't it?
I remember the council before there were any Bangladeshi, well, not any Bangladeshi councillors on, but we've had a council full of men from the same community for years. The Bangladeshis have got nothing on the tight organisation the white men used to have. John Biggs's first cabinet was all white in 1994. Did anybody knock on the door and say, "I've got a hawk here, John, just come to watch you"? No, they didn't, did they?
So there are a couple of others in the same vein, always referring back to this decision of the tribunal. The Guardian really surprised me. This was on the 6th of May as well, because I used to have respect for the Guardian, an independent, but they seem to have lost their compass bearing somehow, and they seem to be drifting to the right in terms of their views and so on. The Spectator as well, they didn't. We've got something here from the 17th of March. And it starts off, him being found guilty of electoral fraud and things like this, and they're all in the same vein. If there's no header as to which paper they were from, one could almost think that they were written by the same people or the same individual.
They speak with one voice. All these journalists, and they're all speaking with one voice. I don't know. All from the same community, I guess.
Possibly. And I hope they're not going to be worried about weapons of mass destruction in Tower Hamlets now or something.
Viewers, if you are worried about weapons of mass destruction in Tower Hamlets, please Google "Lutfur Rahman ate my hamster," and that will take you to an article which the writing is not great. It was written in 2012, which explains how some of the right-wing media are making allegations against Lutfur, which perhaps need a little reinterpretation. So Lutfur Rahman ate my hamster. Look it up.
I'm going to do that when I get home.
It's well worth a read. And again, I mean, we have to stress what has come up is not negative comment that's new in 2022. It's negative comment we've seen before. That Lutfur Rahman ate my hamster article was based on a big article in the Evening Standard, I think it was, headlined something along the lines of "Lutfur Rahman's councillor goes out in Brick Lane and harvests postal votes." When you read down, and you were saying earlier, sometimes people only read the top bit, it said this was based on some Conservative candidates, I think they were, had gone out talking to people, and I think journalists from the Daily Telegraph as well had been going out. And between them, they found somebody who said they had seen a councillor who supported Lutfur Rahman stood in the middle of Brick Lane with some pieces of paper. And if those pieces of paper had been postal votes, there were enough to call it harvesting of postal votes.
If they had,
Now, this was an ordinary punter, and you could tell it was an ordinary punter because most people who go out canvassing from political parties have a sheaf of paper, and it's the electoral register, and it's how you mark down people's voting intentions that you find out. And second, postal votes don't come as pieces of paper. They come in envelopes. So if you were going to harvest them and you only got the papers, you would be a very unsuccessful
I'm going to hide
harvester.
my postal votes.
Yes. Hide your postal vote now for anybody.
That's for the next election.
Yes. Tofial, it's been lovely talking to you, viewers. I hope you've enjoyed the programme, even if, as usual, you're shy and haven't been ringing in. Thank you to Mohammed, who kindly rang in and shared his views with us, and thank you to Nipa and to Benji's mum for sharing comments as well. So I think we'll wrap up now for tonight. We'll be back next week with some other burning topic from Tower Hamlets. Tune in to the council meeting. Council is holding its AGM tomorrow night. I think it's at 7. It may be 7:30. You can find out about it on the council website, and you can watch the meeting. It is videoed. You can watch it remotely as well. So try to navigate your way through the council website if you'd like to do that. So I think we just have one more message to give out now, which is our traditional one. Benji, it's time for bed. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next week. Good night.